The presidential and parliamentary elections held in Ukraine demonstrated the overwhelming desire of Ukrainians to change their approaches to governing the country. Public administration reform is in this context the key to the successful implementation of all other reforms clearly demanded in society.
The reform of public administration is very important because the quality of public administration is what makes the difference between countries like Switzerland, Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, and so on, so very successful countries with high standard of living, and the countries with lower standard of living. It's one of the most important differences. In Ukraine, the reform started back in 2015. There were some positive steps, maybe one of the most important ones, introduction of CNAPs, Centers for Administrative Services, a very good step to move services closer to the citizen. But of course there's still a lot of work to be done in many areas, in the area of civil service, human resources management, e-governance, services for the citizens and businesses. So there's a lot of work ahead of you still.
The reform of public administration started with the law on state service that came into effect on May 1st, 2016, and the reform itself was launched by adoption of the Strategic State Administration 2020. Public activists, experts and officials all took part in the development of important documents. When we were developing this strategy, we were counting on finishing the main activities of this strategy by the end of 2018, in order for the new government to get an already operational system, a functioning state machine, much more efficient than the one in 2014 to 2015. Unfortunately, this did not happen, and the problem is the fact that this reform was not completed. There are several key elements that are completely interconnected, and all of them are aimed at making the state public administration, public service more service-oriented, to satisfy the needs of citizens, to provide quality services, to provide quality governmental solutions, and in general, to make the system of state bodies clear. Public administration reform has been implemented in Ukraine for over 3 years now. During this time, separation of political and administrative functions of civil servants was attained and open competitions were launched. This is a key principle of good governance set out by the European Union. Another task is to turn the government, the ministries, into a center for policy making. Indeed, not just executing assignments, not just managing enterprises there or any very small administrative services, but really looking more broadly at societal issues, finding the best solutions, and then overseeing their implementation. In accordance with the reform, 10 pilot ministries were reformed in the country in September 2017. 50 directorates were created. The changes consisted of a clear separation of policy-making issues and the implementation of key strategy decisions.
It's a process of permanent improvement. It never ends, like nothing in life. You have to improve on a daily basis. You have to compete with other countries, because other countries will always invent something better, something new. You have to look around yourself and see what Singapore does, what Norway does, what Finland does, what Estonia does, and take the best examples, the best practices, and implement them in your country. So, briefly, the reform really never stops, never ends.
Public administration reform has been implemented in many countries around the world for years, and these changes continue even now. After all, building a modern, capable civil service is a process of continuous improvement. The world is developing so fast, other countries are developing, and so new demands of the times are constantly emerging. It requires not kind of intervention by the state, but really a point of view at how to make it better for the whole of society.
Well, I would say that in my country, which is much smaller than yours, of course, the transformation from pre-democratic states with a low level of development of public administration to a modern system of public administration took about 12 to 15 years. But of course, when you reach that point, it does not end. You make efforts to constantly improve public administration. But 12 to 15 years is, I think, the time that a country needs to transform to a modern system.
The state has already taken a step towards Ukrainians in the field of electronic services. Citizens can now receive more than 130 services online, and the volume of open data has increased. Electronic documents flow has begun. These are large, complex projects that require both financial and human resources and time. Further changes in the state will depend on the political will of the new government. What would I advise the new government? Well, first and foremost, to decide who will lead the reform. It would be best if it's the Prime Minister, because this applies to the entire government, all ministries, other bodies of central executive power, local state administrations, that is, the entire government machine. As a result of the reform, an effective and accountable European-level public administration system should be established in Ukraine to serve its citizens, provide quality services, and ensure the sustainable development of the country.